everyone, it's Sandy, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about the book series that I want to give a second chance. I have made a video in the past talking about the series that I won't be finishing, and in that video I talked about quite a lot of series. However, there are a handful of series where I've read the first book but just haven't continued on with the series, and I still have plans on finishing the series. I just haven't gotten around to doing it yet. And in this video I'll also be talking about a couple of books where I started the first book but ended up DNFing it, but I still have plans on actually finishing that first book and hopefully finishing the rest of the series as well. The first series that I wanted to mention is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. There are 4 books in the series. I've only read the first one, which is The Raven Boys. This book follows Blue, who comes from a family of psychics, I believe, and she has always been told that she will kill her first love when she kisses that person. And then we also follow a group of boys known as the Raven Boys, and I don't quite remember what these boys were doing, but they were on some sort of mission trying to find ley lines, and then this king, I don't know. I did end up rating this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it. Honestly, I was just confused for most of this book and I really didn't know what was going on. And I remember not enjoying the characters very much. I read this book like 4 years ago, so I can't really remember why I didn't like the characters. I don't know, I just thought they were kind of dry and not very interesting. When I first read this book, it did take me about 2 weeks to read this book, so I think that because it took me so long to read it, I didn't get the best reading experience from it. But now that the series is completed, I do want to give the series a second chance by rereading the first book and then continuing on with the series. I've just heard so many great things about it and I just want to know why people love it so much. I'm hoping that once I get through the first book again, the rest of the books will get interesting, and I'm hoping that once I reread this book, I'll enjoy it a lot more than I did the first time. So this is definitely a book series I want to give a second chance. The next series that I want to give a second chance is The Diviners by Libba Bray. This book takes place in New York City in the 1920s and it follows a cast of characters, but one of our main characters is Evie O'Neill. She is living with her uncle and she also has this supernatural power that she doesn't want anyone to find out. There's a serial killer on the loose and Evie's powers could actually help catch the serial killer. When I first read this book, it was also over 4 years ago, but I ended up giving this book a 1 out of 5 stars. Everyone who loves The Diviners is probably screaming at me right now, but I just didn't like this book when I read it. I'm pretty sure I read this book before it started getting a ton of hype. Now The Diviners is really popular and really hyped up. I did really like the atmosphere of The Diviners, but I thought the story dragged because it was so long and it also had so many different point of views in it, and I would have preferred if there was a smaller amount of characters that we focused on rather than like all these other characters that I didn't care about. The multiple point of views didn't help because I thought it made it really hard for me to get into the story. Since I've read it, I've heard amazing things about this book and about the other books as well, and I've heard amazing things about the audiobook specifically. When I first read The Diviners, I didn't listen to the audiobook, I just read it physically because I had a physical copy of it. But since I want to give the series a second chance, when I reread The Diviners, I want to be listening to the audiobook and physically reading it at the same time. I've actually never done that before, but I feel like I'd have a much greater reading experience doing that. The next series that I want to give a second chance is The Impostor Queen by Sarah Fine. This is the first book in a companion trilogy, I believe. This book follows a girl named Ellie who is supposed to succeed the queen when the queen dies. The book does start off with the queen dying, but Ellie doesn't inherit the queen's powers, so she has to flee. I did really enjoy this book. It had a lot of elements that I love reading about in books, such as magic, romance, and I really like this plot of her not being the chosen one. The reason why I haven't continued on with the series yet is because the next book isn't a direct sequel, it's a companion novel, so it doesn't follow Ellie's character. I'm pretty sure she does show up in the companion novel, but it's not like a direct sequel following her point of view, so that has been putting me off from continuing on with the series. But this is one that I do want to read. It's one that I don't see talked about a lot on BookTube, so I just really need to continue the series so I can talk more about it. The next 2 series that I want to talk about are books that I actually DNF'd, but I want to give them a second chance by rereading them and then continuing on with the series. The next series that I want to give a second chance is 3 Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. This book follows 3 sisters who all have to fight to the death to be the next heir to the crown. I started this book a couple months after it came out and I actually picked up the audiobook version and I was not enjoying the audiobook, so I ended up DNFing this book. But this is a book that I want to give a second chance, and when I do, I'm going to pick up an actual copy and read it myself because I just didn't like the audiobook format. When I was listening to this book, I felt like not a lot was happening. This book is very political driven, so it was focusing on that, and I just felt like listening to the audiobook just wasn't the best method to be reading this book. I've heard a lot of great things about 3 Dark Crowns, so I do want to continue on the series. I've heard like some shocking things in it that happens, and I want to know what that shocking thing is. And the last series that I want to give a second chance is Alex and Eliza by Melissa de la Cruz. I think this is also a trilogy. I know that there is a sequel out for this book already. I love the musical Hamilton, so I want to read a book that's inspired by that. This book falls under the same category of Three Dark Crowns. I started the audiobook, felt really bored listening to the audiobook, so I didn't finish the audiobook, but I do have plans on eventually picking up this physical book and reading it myself. I've heard okay things about this book, so I'm not really in a rush to pick this book up right away, but eventually I do want to read this book. Those are all the book series that I want to give a second chance. If you've read any of those books, please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know which one I should prioritize. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye!